is Brandon Shell, and I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I went to school here in Chapel Hill at UNC, and was kind of directionless after I graduated. I had done some internships that, working in an office, and it was very clear that that wasn't for me. So I spent a lot of time traveling, about 2 years when I graduated, and then it slowly became that wasn't enough, and that I started to get exposed to different concepts like permaculture through my travels, and people that were living in alternative housing, and these things sparked my interest. When I got home were the driving kind of forces in my life were, okay, I wanted to learn more about permaculture and start gardening, and I also wanted to start building a tiny house. After one of my travels, I got home and I watched, it was one of the original Netflix documentaries about tiny houses. It was me and my dad watching it with my brother. And at the time, he was finishing just like a little garden tool shed in his backyard that looked just like a little tiny house. It was really well done, and he just is a really kind of a master carpenter. And I had enough money still saved up at that point, and it just all kind of made sense. And so I started to build what is now this tiny house. Yeah, I guess you guys know the first thing you really decide is like how big, well, if you're doing it on wheels, is like how big to get the trailer. That can be tough. It's like, you're about to start like spending thousands of dollars, and you're going to be wanting to live in this place for the foreseeable future. So it's like, it's hard to kind of figure out how much space you really need. And the internet's helped a lot. Like, you can see other people's designs. I know myself, I was drawn towards like the smaller end of the spectrum of the people like living in like 100, 110, 120 square foot houses. So I eventually decided on 16. That just seemed, I was between 16 and 14. And you find that really those 2 extra square feet, I found, really came in handy. I don't think there's a single, wasted square foot in this house. But that was largely a result of like me figuring out what exactly I needed in this space for myself, and figuring out how much space that object or those things were going to take up. And then before you buy the trailer and you're kind of like committed, you can figure out, okay, I think 16 feet is going to work. And so I decided on 16. I try to separate it into rooms, you could say. This is the living room, the desk area built into the bay window. I wanted a lofted bedroom, and also I like the idea of having a shallow roof angle so that I'd have more headspace up there. I also didn't want to feel cramped underneath the kitchen area here. And like I mentioned, kitchen space is important to me. I found through experience that this was awesome, like plenty of prep space. And then these shelves were all kind of my pantry space. And I could use these cabinets as overflow pantry space if I needed to. But after finishing in it and living in it, there was nothing I regretted doing. I think everything, fortunately, worked perfectly, and exactly kind of as we had planned. Behind the door is the shower. We built our own as well, and designed just a shower pan to drain it out. So the only 2 kind of points of water that I have to collect and plumb out are the shower and the kitchen sink. I think just because it's a tiny house, I didn't need an extra bathroom sink. It just made sense to use the kitchen sink as well. And then on the back side is the humidor toilet that we had mentioned, and the same kind of style as the pantry shelves, just similar shelves built onto the back wall for toiletries and toilet paper and all that. I never wanted to take a loan out to build it. I always wanted to pay for it with cash. And so I would work part-time during the week of just doing like odd job, handyman kind of stuff, or landscaping jobs, just to be able to afford what I'd then spend that weekend. At that point, me and my dad started to frame the walls and get going with everything. Once I became more confident in my skills, he would pretty much show me by the end of the weekend what I could then be working on that week, and get a head start for him to come back that weekend. And then, and it was really cool. It's just like, if, you guys built your house together, it's just a really neat bonding experience to share with somebody. I would have been super overwhelmed had I tried to tackle it myself. it would have taken a lot longer. I would have gotten a lot more frustrated than I already did get at certain points. And I think that's what I'm sure a lot of people who decide to build it themselves face, is just this overwhelming, like, oh my God, there's so much you have to know. You have to know the whole full spectrum of plumbing, electrical, carpentry, just what size nail do I use, what size screw do I use, what type of nail. So many decisions you have to make. It's good to be a decisive tiny house builder. Sherry wants me to be her farm manager here, which is awesome. That's very much a dream come true, because I've been, wanting to move from smaller scale permaculture, just like on a home garden kind of scale, to doing larger projects like this. And being somebody that's always been like very independent, it's just like day after day of being here, I'm really finding that having the community to support you, and having that community kind of feel of this place is just awesome. So this is our first year planting, so that's kind of been on my mind, of getting everything ready come spring. Getting a lot of seeds, getting a lot of seedlings and trees, kind of figuring out what we're gonna do to get the ground worked. This guy? Yeah. It's my dad. He's the master builder around these parts. The build manager, I guess you could say. He helped me build this one. I mean, he's helped me build everything that I've built. I mean, he's helped a lot. And this one has been largely more me, but with his guidance. When I built this one, I documented everything so that for myself, if I ever wanted to do another, I wouldn't have to lean so much on him. And well, now I'm finding with the whole RVI certification that that's gonna come really in handy, because I can show them the pictures of step by step what I did. This wasn't always intended to be my cabin. Originally, I think it was intended to be the community kitchen. So Sherry had it delivered here, or a community classroom. But at that point, we didn't really have anything to teach or necessarily show or educate the public on. So it then became tool storage. And we eventually got that little mobile tool shed, I guess you could say. And then at that point, I had started to rent this on Airbnb, and so I needed a place to live out here. And so I approached Sherry about converting this and finishing it to be my cabin. So I can show you guys in if you want. So yeah, it's still kind of a work zone, but it's about 2 weeks away from being finished. At this point, I just have to hook up the propane for the gas range and add a bed. But this one is a prefab shed, so for a lot of people wanting a tiny house, this is a good option because the framing's already done for you. For somebody with little to no carpentry experience. At this point, once you have a prefab shed, then it's just a matter of running all of your circuits, so getting electrical, getting the walls insulated, and then a lot of the finished details, so the wall boards and getting it furnished, and the ceilings, the floors. But that's very doable for somebody with little experience. Still nice to have a mentor or somebody guiding you, obviously. But so yeah, this one is 240 square feet. And a similar kind of theme for my houses is I like to have a lot of kitchen space. I never want to be cramped, and I never want to feel like I don't have enough room to prep. So I think with this, it shouldn't be an issue. I think I've given myself enough cabinet space. And I really like these like 10 cubic foot refrigerators. I noticed you guys had a little smaller one, but for me this is a perfect size, because I get a lot of groceries, so this has been really good. I like these are those black iron pipes, 1/2 inch black iron pipes, well, this is galvanized steel, but I use black iron pipes on the other ones. I like the whole kind of open shelving. It's just a lot simpler, and when you're confined, it would be hard to have cabinets under there. Actually, yeah, I guess I've gotten adjusted to slowly ducking down, but yeah, it's a little tight, maybe if I had no shoes on. But that, if that's the thing with a prefab shed, is you're working within the confines of what already existed. Like these lofts were already there. Fortunately, it's about 6 foot 3 inches, so I fit reasonably well under there. It's nice, when you have more width, you can get different furniture. It's nice to actually have kind of like a little L couch sectional. You can just kind of take different furnishing choices. I think we'll appreciate having the bedroom or the bed be on the ground floor and not having to climb up and down the loft every time. I think even for me, since I was like so used to living in 128 square feet, this seems like I almost have like too much space now. It's like I don't know how to fill up these storage lots, but it's nice to have that capacity. We have 2 other cabins that there's eventually going to be woofers in. Right now there's temporary residents, and because those cabins were very much like this cabin, they didn't have a bathroom, we wanted to go ahead and give them a place to shower and a place to use the restroom, and for volunteers to also use the restroom there. So eventually we will have community laundry facilities as well. So certain things that, you know, it's nice to have your own bathroom in your own house. Like in the middle of winter, it would be a pain in the middle of the night to have to like get dressed, go use the bathroom and come back. So eventually I will have my own bathroom, and maybe we'll fit these cabins out with bathrooms as well. But in the meantime, we have those facilities ready. And you know, we're still trying to figure out our septic system. It very well might be that in the future we all have flush toilets hooked up to a septic tank. I'm now actually renting the house on Airbnb. I decided to do it because I was traveling for 3 months and I didn't want it to go vacant. I wanted somebody living in here, and I actually never really considered Airbnb until Sherry mentioned it, and then you know, I was like sitting there traveling and I guess earning income passively, and it was just a really cool feeling, something that I wanted to continue when I got back. So it's been rented ever since. You know, it's cool because I'm hosting a lot of people that are interested in building one themselves. Maybe it's just a far off dream, or maybe they're actually really close to making the first few steps. So for a night or two, it gives them a chance to experience it. And to people that just really maybe have no interest in actually having a tiny house, but want the experience, because it is a super unique experience. It's a really kind of cozy place to stay for a night or two. As a tiny house community, when we are, you know, looking at an application for somebody to move on, a resident, we want to make sure that they've lived in a tiny house for an extended period of time to make sure that they know kind of what they're getting into. In the past, people that have had tiny houses and ended up unfortunately really disliking the experience and the lifestyle. So, you know, we want people that are going to stick around and that embrace kind of this lifestyle. It's very rewarding to see people's face, like when they walk into a tiny house, like, and the one that you've built, and just like the sense of awe of like, wow, this is so incredible. You know, it's just, you feel good about it. So it definitely inspires me, although I'm not like as much of a natural builder as my dad. I'm becoming more and more so. I have those skills now, and it's definitely inspiring to like want to build more. So I'm paying Sherry a lot fee for this particular lot. Well, these 2 lots actually. So everything within the lot, I kind of have a say of what I want to grow and what I want to include, be that like picnic tables or community spaces, outdoor kitchens, gardening space. So for me, it's just like, it's zone 1. It's like so immediate that I can walk out my door and pick my own food and kind of have that feeling of like independence and autonomy. That's really important in a community like this, that everyone feels like they can have their own individual space, their personal space to do kind of whatever they want, as long as it's aesthetically pleasing. I'm still technically outside the circle though, the circle that goes around the property with the driveway essentially, but everything inside the circle is then kind of the community collective growing space. And so that's going to be kind of our main production, whereas this is just kind of like hobby gardening. I'll go show you guys that over there. To me, it's like permaculture is just a mutually beneficial relationship between man and nature, so that we're figuring out what exactly does nature provide us, and it provides all of our needs really, but we want to obtain those in a way that's net positive for nature, that nature is getting more than we're receiving from it. We kind of just, for the sake of designing this place, split the land into the back half and the front half, and the natural kind of barrier between that is the pond in the middle, and that's kind of the low spot of the property. And so a lot of the water, even though it looks flat, will eventually just funnel down into there. And so it's a little bit swampy now, but it's placed to position a pond. The front half of the property is going to be ornamental, almost like a walk-through botanical garden. So a much larger emphasis on the aesthetic and kind of the experience for a volunteer or a visitor to come through and walk through and kind of have just like an immersive experience. Almost like walking through like Duke Gardens or a really incredible botanical garden. The back half is going to be largely more just food production. We have a planting scheme. We would like to incorporate swales to catch some of the water before it either streams off the back there, off the road, or into the pond. And that will prevent us from having to use a lot of artificial irrigation, which we could very well do and pump from the pond. For me, at least, and I think a lot of the other residents share this vision, is that like we have a really unique community here we're tiny houses. We have everyone interested in growing food. The focus really should be on growing staple food crops and trying to provide as many of our own calories on site as possible. The shift for us, and I guess the whole permaculture shift as well, is a shift away from annuals and towards perennials. That's perennial vegetables, that's fruit trees, that's nut trees, things that will be here for many years and that we don't have to replant. And so as farm manager, I want to do really as little work as I need to do because it's going to be a lot of work. That very much fits the bill. The first thing that we have to do before we think about what exactly we're going to plant is to just get the ground ready. And in this part of North Carolina, we're dealing with a very heavy clay soil. And because we've had to run so many machines over this land to clear it out and to clean it up, a lot of what organic matter may have been here in the beginning is now gone. And so there's very little topsoil. And if we had more time, we could gradually build that topsoil naturally, in both selection of plants and also, mulching and cover cropping. But we're having to do it artificially, you could say. Fortunately, the town of Orange County has dropped just load after load of mulched leaf litter. That's the main big piles. We're also getting composted horse manure, and we're getting kind of a more prepared compost as well. And then just down the road, there's a development that has actual soil. So in collection, all tilled in, hopefully within a few years, it will all be kind of composted at that point. But the goal is to have it a seed bed prepared in the first year that we can actually have something to plant into this year. So we're still trying to figure out what tractor implements we need, and it's a matter of getting all of the materials here, which is just a lot of runs back and forth with like a dump truck. Well, it's been a busy winter and an ambitious spring. We're eager to have residents because it's additional hands, especially skilled residents that want to build it together with us. But also we look forward to having more volunteers out here because nobody wants to volunteer when it's freezing outside. So once the weather improves, we'll have a lot more people out here and a lot more hands to help get this done. Well, I think when a lot of people think of permaculture, they just think about agriculture. And that's fair because a lot of permaculture is agriculture based, but there's also permaculture extends and is kind of all-encompassing into designing for housing and fuel needs and medicine and clothing. Like all of the needs we try to do in a way that benefits nature. And so for me, it's like the way I think about a good permaculture system would be that it almost feels like you're in raw nature, but that every single element in the design is a consciously chosen element that has some benefit to you or the community. Yeah. We had a resident named Mike who was living with us for for an extended period of time, and he actually built a hydroponic system. It's a soilless system to grow food, and they had, I think, lettuce and kale growing last year. It's not functioning as it stands, but you can kind of get a sense of what it was. So you have your main kind of like water storage tank, you have a pump, and then you have your run of pipes. And so there's these little cups like this, and then you seed into the styrofoam there. So once the water is running consistently through it, you have all your things germinate, and then this whole entire, I guess, run is filled with leaf crops. For somebody that doesn't have access to soil or really poor soil, this is a fair system to use, but it does produce a lot of food. Like it was really quite abundant. But it's fun to experiment with, and it's fun to educate and show the public a different kind of way to grow food. I didn't know that we were like really the only kind of dedicated tiny house community like this, and that's really cool. We hope that you know, the state and the county and the local officials will work with us, because I think what we're doing here is really unique, and we hope to kind of set a precedent for other communities to form in a similar fashion to this.
Hey guys, it's Alexis
and Christian.
Thank you very much for watching our video.
Yes, and subscribing to our channel.
And don't forget to check out more tiny house stories
And tours.
Oh, and don't forget to join us on Patreon.
And again, don't forget to subscribe.
See you next time.
Take it easy, guys.